Hey guys, and welcome back to the Intuition Revolution. I'm your host, Kim Chestney, and today's guest, Katie Brauer, is one of my all-time favorite people. She is an international yoga educator and mentor at the intersection of yoga and entrepreneurship. Now we're talking my language. She is an Aussie native and a former professional snowboarder. She's been featured in TEDx, Wonderlust, Forbes, Entrepreneur Magazine, Guy MTV, so much. She was the creative force behind Yoga 6 and is the founder of the yogaprofessional Incubator. I love so many things about Katie, and I'm just thrilled to have her here today to share her wisdom with us and really start this really important conversation about this nexus between spirituality and business. So welcome, Katie.
Thank you so much, Kim. I am so excited to be here, and I will totally echo back and mirror back. My fondness and love for you, it's so rare to meet someone in the world in general that just lines up what they teach and how they live, and you do it so beautifully, and you're so powerful, and I'm so excited that your message is getting out there in a big way, and I'm so honored to be a part of the support to make that happen.
Well, it has been so wonderful. You and I mean, even though we're like on opposite ends of the continent, have been working together for the last couple of years, growing our business together. And we've had this really shared vision. I think we have so much in common. One of the things that really drew me to you was this, besides the fact that you got intuition and we were totally on the same level with all that, but you have this ability to sort of use what I like to say is both sides of your brain, right? You know how to do, you're so intuitively and spiritually aligned, but at the same time, as a business innovator, you're out there running like a 6-figure business and leading the way for all these people. So you're able to like balance these two sides of action and awareness and really be a light to other people. So to start things off, maybe you could tell us a little bit about your journey and, what did you do that led you to this extraordinary level of, success in the spiritual community?
Sure. Well, I was kind of go back, obviously not obviously to me when I look back, but my whole life, I've always been very curious. Like that is one of the qualities that I really appreciate about myself and I admire in other people is this quality of curiosity. And combine that with a love of personal development and deepening self-understanding and really peeling back the layers, that for sure has been the foundation of everything that has unfolded in my life. And when I was snowboarding professionally, I was introduced to yoga. That was as a teenager in my late teens. And yoga initially was really just this, I was practicing the physical application of yoga. And through a pretty horrific injury that happened and the subsequent rehabilitation from that injury where the normal practices that the physical therapist had given me and the protocol just was not working, I was curious. Instead of accepting that as it was, I got curious about yoga and the energetic practices of yoga and meditation and visualization and this whole other side of yoga that I hadn't explored. So this was in my very early 20s. And lo and behold, as I started reading books from the library and started experimenting with some of these practices, things began to change. And that just blew the door of Pandora's box for me, which I have been in for down the rabbit hole for over 20 years. And it really has been that sense of curiosity and wonder with the willingness to experiment just for the sake of what might happen. And that is really, I would say, just lent itself so much to my continual evolution as a human being, but then also as an entrepreneur. And yoga has been the platform for me to not only express myself, but also pay my bills for over 2 decades. And I've had that opportunity to share my wisdom, my learning with companies. And Yoga 6 was something that I contributed to from the very, very get-go. And we're now the fastest growing boutique yoga studio in the US with over 900 studios opening in the next 3 years.
Yeah, we got one here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, wow. And then also the other offerings that I have, which primarily right now I'm focused on really supporting yoga teachers in creating sustainable and thriving businesses and getting into a relationship that, as you mentioned, is firmly steadfast in the physical and practical realm, as well as that connection to higher self, to intuition, and then allowing the relationship between those two to be what sets the course and the path forward. So yeah.
Yeah, and I love that. I love you keep talking about curiosity and wonder. And those are they're like two things that are like really underrated, I think. And especially they tie into intuition because when you really start seeing with the eyes of intuition and you see that there's so much more to life than sort of our limited consciousness and mind and the path right in front of us shows, this whole world of wonder opens up. And I love that you're talking about curiosity and really curiosity ties into your callings and where are you called to go and where are you called to look and what are you called to explore. These are all calling cards of intuition and that you're doing something right. So how else do you really see intuition playing a role in the work that you do, either spiritually or business wise
Yeah.
or both?
I mean, it is present literally day to day, multiple times a day, where if there's opportunity that comes my way, it will always be something that is very easy. And this is what I see in people that I work with and observation of others, for us to go into the logical mind, to start a list of pros and cons. Oh, should I do this or shouldn't I do this? And for me, in my own experience, that has actually never worked out in a way that leaves me feeling empowered.
Yes.
More often than not, when I've made choices based on that type of logical thinking and it hasn't worked out, I will end up saying to myself, there was a part of me that knew not to do that. And so intuition for me is something that I incorporate into the day-to-day, and it really is the rudder of every choice that I make in my business, who I decide to work with, what engagements I decide to take on, what projects I decide to bring to life. Because as a creative, there's a lot of ideas that are coming in all of the time. And of course, there's limited time in the day and I can't do all of them. So I need to be able to really cultivate that intuitive instinct to be able to discern what is the thing that I allow in at this moment in time and put money, action and time toward to bring to life. So it really is like this ongoing day-to-day, moment-to-moment relationship with intuition that's supporting me in my business.
Yeah, I mean, it's really practical, right? And that's what a lot of people don't realize. They think of intuition and they think, oh, it's like this woo thing and we're going to look in our crystal ball and you have to be like weird or something to do it. But no, that's not what intuition is. And that's like, that's a kind of intuition that people can participate in. But intuition is wired within us. It's as natural as our intelligence, right? And it teaches us to do these things and shows us the way if we tune into it. So I love that you really accentuated the really practical ways that people can use their intuition every day, whether you're shopping or going to work or meditating. There's like, it's always there in so many ways. So you have a really strong connection with your body. You're a yoga teacher. You're a snowboarder. Could you tell us a little bit about the body-mind connection and what role your intuition plays in your own healing?
Yeah, my gosh, such a good question. I feel that my ability to feel sensation in my body and be in a relationship with that sensation is what lends itself to me being able to hear my intuitive guidance when it comes through. So because the felt sense in my body, when my intuition is beckoning me towards something, is grounded. There's this felt sense of anchor. It feels very expansive. It's like right up and down the midline of my body. And it is undeniable. It is really familiar because I've really nurtured that relationship in trusting my intuition and having so many experiences where it has served me well when I followed it, that I really genuinely trust it. So when I get that feeling, I mean, I could tell you many examples in my life where I have made big, drastic life choices that from the outside look completely crazy and in many ways reckless, because the feeling has been so strong and my trust in that intuitive felt sense is so strong that I just say, yep, doing it. And people will be like, well, haven't you thought about this? I'm like, no. Well, what are you thinking? Why would you do that? Why haven't you thought about this? I'm like, because the feeling, the felt sense of this is a yes is so strong that I don't need to go down that rabbit hole of logic and Newtonian thinking that gets me actually into my head and into the lower aspects of mind, which is, doubt, fear, worry, all of that type of thing. It's like, no, I am tapped into higher self. I am tapped into a, like pure consciousness energy. And this is, I can feel it in every cell of my body. It's a fuck yes. That's all I need to know.
I love that. And that's really how powerful intuition is. And that's the thing. When you have it, you know it. It's like, boom. And when you get that calling and you get that feeling, no pros and cons list can get you off, because you just know. And you know without knowing, but you know, and you might not know why, and you might not be able to explain it, but it doesn't matter. And I love that. It's like, what are you thinking? Well, I'm not thinking. I'm doing the opposite of thinking. I'm aligning with something higher than thinking. That's where that intuition is coming from.
And I think, something to add to that, and where people I recognize get hung up, and where earlier in my lifetime, which was a long time ago, I used to get hung up as well of like, okay, I'm feeling that this is a yes, and then getting hung up on, but how is it going to happen? Because it's so illogical.
Right.
And that's the thing, when there's a connection to the quantum realm, the how actually doesn't matter. I feel like the universe is waiting for us to decide and to declare, okay, this is a yes, I'm deciding, and then the universe will reveal the answers and the next steps. And my only job then is to engage those next steps as they arrive, but they will be revealed to me once I decide.
I love that. I couldn't have said that better myself. That is absolutely true, because it's not about the how. You leave that up to the universe. It's just about trust. Ultimately, it comes back to the word that you used earlier, and it's a word that I feel is the foundation of everything that you do with your intuition, and that's learning to trust yourself. You have a feeling, you have a knowingness, and you trust it. You don't listen to the Newtonian thinking that's going to try and figure out how to get from here to there. You trust in that wormhole that's going to take you from here to like the miracle. And it's so cool that you brought up that, because one of the things I like to say, and I talk about this in the book Radical Intuition, is that the intellect is to the Newtonian mind is what intuition is to the quantum mind, right? So it really is a quantum ability of the intuition to circumlocute the how, to just get to where it needs to be, and that knowingness that drives us there. So that, I love those insights. So do you have any cool stories of how intuition works some miracles in your life, or any fun things?
Literally have so many thousands of cool freaking stories. I mean, how much time do we have? I'll share a story of how I actually got here to California, Encinitas, California. This is definitely a mecca of yoga. I had never been here before. I'd never been to San Diego before. At the time, I was living in Florida, and I was taking a trip down to Australia to visit with family and mend a broken heart. And I knew that I didn't want to live in Florida anymore, because I had broken up with my ex, and that was where he lived. And not necessarily somewhere I would have chosen to live had I been single. Like I went down there for him. Right. And so in Australia, I had a calling to come to California the entirety of the time that I had lived in the States, which had been at that point in time almost 10 years. And I was in Australia. I was actually in New Zealand at the time for Christmas. And I was on this little hill kind of looking out at the ocean, and I was having a conversation with the universe of like, okay, like I'm declaring to the universe, I want to move to California. I don't know where. I want to move somewhere between Santa Monica and San Diego. I knew that I wanted to live in Southern California because it's warmer and I surf. show me. I'm listening. I am in this rinky-dink town in New Zealand. Over the next 10 days, meet 8 people from San Diego, unrelated to one another. It wasn't that they were there in a big group. Over 10 days, I met 8 people from San Diego. And
No way.
I was
That's
like,
awesome.
that I'm listening. Like, I'm moving to San Diego. So when I got back from that trip from New Zealand back to Australia, and I was having a barbecue with my family, and a family friend said, you know, what are you doing when you go back to the States? And I said, I'm moving to San Diego. And my mom overheard, and she goes, Sandy, what? You've never even been to San Diego. And I said, I know, but I'm moving. And this was one of these classic examples where from an outsider's perspective, it looked absolutely crazy because my business in Florida was fantastic. I was working with a bunch of celebrities. I was working with a bunch of professional sports people and Olympians. Honestly, I was barely having to work at all because I was earning such great money. I had many days by the pool where I would read my books and, you know, dive more into self-understanding and learning. And so from that standpoint, it was like, why would you give all of that up to move somewhere where you've never been, you don't know anyone, you have no connections, but the feeling and the felt sense was so strong. So fast forward, and there's many other pieces that go in this story. I moved here to California. I came down here at the first yoga class that I took. The first day that I got here, I connected with the teacher after, and she said, you need to meet this woman, Meredith. She's also Australian, and she owns a yoga studio in Del Mar. She gave me this woman's number. Fast forward a few weeks, I reach out to Meredith. We established this relationship. I begin teaching at her studio. Fast forward a few months after that, I had this desire to own a yoga studio. We talked about going into partnership. And a few months down the road, she called me to have lunch with me and said, I need to tell you how I got into teaching. And she told me that whole thing. And she said, listen, what I've seen and what I know of you from the short period that I know is that you were here put on the planet to teach and share your gift with the community. So I want to give you this yoga studio.
What?
She gave me a yoga studio for $1.
Are you kidding me?
I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding.
Well,
it was like
wow.
magic time. And that was a result of listening deeply and intently to higher self, universe, whatever you want to call it, God, the divine, and feeling in my body that yes, and turning down the volume on all of the naysayers and even the part of my mind that would come in to play that was just like, yeah, what are you doing? This is fucking crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone. And you're a yoga teacher and you're moving to the most highly saturated yoga population of teachers in the USA.
Right.
Like, why would you do that? And boy, oh boy, I'm so glad that I did.
Yeah. And you really saw the reward for following and trusting in that. And you saw there it was, because if you hadn't trusted yourself, that opportunity, it was there waiting for you. And you moved into alignment with it, even though you didn't know it at the time, right? The universe knows, the universe knows what's out there. Knows the potential around you in all the different directions. And your intuition always aligns you with your best path. And if you trust it like you did, right? And then that's when you move into that space of trust and belief in life, that life is going to support you when you're living in alignment, then these magical things happen. Like, when does something like that ever happen? Never. That's such an amazing story.
Yeah. And I think when I recall that story and that experience, and I really look at it, there was breadcrumbs that the universe put into my path all the way along the way. And what was necessary was for me to engage those breadcrumbs and to one, recognize that they were there, and two, pick them up and engage them, because I didn't have to connect with the yoga teacher at the class the first day that I was down here. I could have easily have just rolled up my mat and like walked out. Then when she gave me the phone number, I could have just put that in my bag and forgot about it. And I think that is what's really important, is that it's not a one-sided thing. It's like the universe shows up, we got to show up. We show up, then the universe will show up. Yeah.
And we co-create. That's the thing. You do it together. It's a joint effort. And the universe can't just do everything for you. It's not going to just make your life magically appear. You got to make those choices and really basing them intuitively instead of trying to figure everything out with our brains. Because you never would have got there. If you tried to figure out a path for yourself, you would have never gone there. Right?
Oh my God.
No. And we have a ton of yoga teachers in our community. I mean, I think yoga and intuition, they go so hand in hand. I think that many, if not all, yoga teachers are naturally tuned into intuition because, as you're doing what you're doing, I mean, you have to be in alignment with your intuition. So like, what advice do you have for folks out there who aspire to build successful, sustainable, magical yoga studios and businesses like you did?
And you and I was sort of talking about this offline. I think that it's the one of the aspects of intuition that's necessary to develop is this quality of discernment. And so from that place, one of the things that has been really valuable in my growth and my success has been aligning with others and that have the same high integrity that I live by and hold myself to, the really high personal and professional standards. So mentors, colleagues, others that are in your industry or people that you look up to, that you're inspired by, practicing discernment of, we've talked about this online world, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors, and quite frankly, there's a whole lot of BS where there's a lack of alignment between what's being projected outside and what's actually happening behind the scenes.
So true.
And your intuitive sense and nature will pick up on that. And that's really for each of us to be able to discern, like, who's the real deal and who's not the real deal. The people that are the real deal are going to want to support you and going to want to celebrate you and rally behind you. So I think that alignment with like finding your people that that can support you in bringing your vision to life. And don't be afraid to reach out and ask questions. Like I had, this is actually kind of funny. I've never shared this before, but there's so much value in just asking. Someone can always say no. So I had this thing last year, it was maybe 2 years ago. Laurie Harder, if you're familiar with her, she's got like, I don't know, 1 million or 2 million followers or whatever. She was doing a live event down near where I live. And I was like, I want to speak at that live event. And I was sitting down having lunch on my own. I'm like, I'm just going to send this woman an email. Well, do I have her email? No, I don't. But I just was like, I'm going to send an email to lharder@gmail.com, laurieharder@gmail.com. And I tried all these different variations of the email. Sure enough, within 20 minutes, I got a response.
Oh my God.
And I think that is advice that I would say is like, reach out and ask. If someone's doing something that you're inspired by, or if someone has done something that you want to do, just reach out and ask them, hey, would you be willing to share? Where should I get started? What should I do? Because I know when people reach out to me and ask, it's a pleasure to be able to support them and guide them in the right direction. Or if you have something you're considering and you're like, do you know anything about this? That's where I really see this as we're all in it together. So of course I have offerings that support yoga teachers specifically at this point in time with financial awakening, with setting up their business for sustainability. So yeah, those are some of the things that I would recommend, but really attuning into that intuitive sense and then practicing discernment when it comes to people that you want to align with, because when you are in relationship, and particularly in relationship with people of high integrity that are very service based and genuinely care about your success as much as their own, there is no limit to how quickly you can catapult yourself forward.
Amen. And that's one of the things I loved about working with you. And when we connected very early on, because I think we really both are people that are in that mindset of connectivity. And intuition's all about connectivity. It's about bringing people together, uniting people together, especially people who are different than you, people that you can learn from, people who can inspire you. This is, we did a study with Carnegie Mellon University where we studied success and what that looks like. And one of the key defining factors when you're dealing with creativity and intuition was the ability of people to connect with other people. The people that were connecting with others were people who were succeeding. If you're in a silo, you're working on your own, you're not as likely to generate these new ideas and create the chemistry that you need to take things to the next level. So I love what you say about, we're all in this together, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. So wise words. So thank you so much, Katie. Thanks for sharing all this wisdom with us. And for those of you guys out there, you can learn more about Katie's work with the Yoga Professional Incubator and all the cool stuff that she's doing on her website at katiebrauer.com. Thanks, Katie.
You're so welcome. Thanks so much.
Be well.